Good morning. My name is Ben Roll. I'm an application engineer with Ally PLM Solutions. I want to welcome all of you to our Ally PLM Lunch Byte series. These sessions are designed to briefly explore the capabilities within Solid Edge that are often overlooked. Today's session is part 2 of what's new in ST4. If you have any questions regarding today's session, please write them down and send them via email. We have a lot of you on the line with us today, so you'll be in listen-only mode. That way we don't get feedback from speakerphones. Like I said, we're going to cover the second part of what's new in ST4. First thing we're going to look at is the assembly relationships. There's a new one called range. Basically, you use it for slides, hydraulic cylinders, those kind of things. It lets you input the minimum and maximum distance that you want it to move. Next thing we're going to look at is the enhancements to the fastener system. You'll notice here you can now copy the parts to the working standard parts folder or to your assembly folder. And you can also save this fastener system setting the same way you can save hole settings so that you don't have to recreate it each time. We're also going to look at some of the enhancements in rendering. They did a lot of stuff, makes it a lot easier to get high quality renderings right up front. You don't have to tweak as much to get a decent image. They also added more scenery choices. They have 8 different 3D backgrounds, so as you rotate around the part, the background changes just like you were walking around the room. They also have 14 new abstract backgrounds, and they've added a lot of interior and exterior backgrounds as well. They also have some new studio themes, and this is just a preview of a few of them. We're also going to look at the flow line enhancements, which a lot of you have probably been looking for. Now you have the ability to draw your own flow lines and modify the ones that come up automatically. You have the modify command and the draw command that they've added. You can split flow lines and delete flow lines and sections of flow lines. They've also added a direct translator for Inventor files. So now you can just open up the Inventor files. The one thing that this requires is that you have the free Inventor viewer loaded on the same machine. So you don't have to go through an extra step to load, like to translate the Inventor files. You just have to have that free viewer installed, and then you can open them straight inside of Solid Edge. When you go to do that, you're going to get some options the same way you do with other file types. The files have to be from Inventor version 6 or later. They've also added the new 3D PDF, which a lot of people had been asking for. The way this works, you save out the 3D PDF, and in the free viewer, you can open it up, and you see the screenshot there. It comes across with the assembly tree and the camera views. You can rotate, zoom, pan, do all that kind of stuff in the free Adobe Reader. If you have the professional version of Adobe, then you can measure the part using the 3D measure tools that Adobe has. So basically you send that out, and if your customer has the professional one, they can measure, and if they don't, they can open it in the free one and see all the stuff that you put in there. The last thing we're going to look at is the draft enhancements, and there are a lot of them, so we're not going to be able to cover every single one, but we're going to look at the part list enhancements, the auto stack for the balloons, callout aspect ratio, feature control frame, hatching on the ribs, the dimension format, break lines, the broken out section view, the text box. We're going to look at how you can lock views and the print preview. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is the new range relationship. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up this assembly. And if I click on the shaft, you'll see I have the mate is set to float. So all I have to do is come over here to the offset type, and you still have fixed and floating, and now they've added the range. So let's say I want to put it between 3 and 250 millimeters. You can do that, and now when I come up to drag component, so I need to activate these first. So now when I come up to drag component and I select that cylinder, I can move it, and you'll see it only goes within that range that I set. So we'll go ahead and save that and go back to the assembly. And now the same thing. If I go to drag component, just hit OK, I can grab that cylinder and it will drag it in between that range. And the same thing goes for if I were to pattern this. So just come up here to pattern, select all 3 parts, select that path, and now see I have 3 of those. So I just come into the one that the pattern's based off of, drag component, and I can drag that, and then once I get it to wherever I want it, let go, and the other 2 will update. So that's all for the range. Now we're going to look at the fastener system. The way the fastener system works now, they've kind of updated the dialog. Just go up to the fastener system, and now you can select top hole by plane and all on face as the hole that you want to start with. So just to show you all on face, I select that, and it's going to select all the holes that are on that face. And then when I go in and place the fastener system, it will automatically put it in all of those holes, which is really nice if you're trying to put it into a bunch of them. It'll do it all at the same time, so you don't have to keep going through. Now we're going to look at just the single. We're going to do that over here. Select the hole, and then select the one you want to use as the depth, and then it'll bring up the new fastener system dialog. Some of the things that they added, like I mentioned, now you can copy it to the working folder, or you can copy it to your assembly folder, so that if you have to go in and move the assembly, now you'll have all the fastener systems right there with what you're doing. You can also save the settings. See, I have one saved here, and that way you don't have to go in and recreate that fastener system every single time. For this one, we're going to go ahead and select the bolt, and then we're going to go to the bottom stack and put on the nut. If you want, you can preview it in the assembly instead of having to go through and generate all of them. If you're not sure that that's what you really want, you can preview it. But I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. And you'll see it places the bolt and the nut on the other side. Another new thing they added is this flip. So that'll come in handy if you realize, well, I want it to be facing the other way. Just click flip and it'll flip it around. Now we're going to go ahead and finish that. Another new thing they added in ST4 is that now it to just be a hole, you can put it through a slot. So for that, you just do this top hole by plane, select the plane, select the hole that you want it to go through, and then zip it up. We're just going to do this as the bolt, go to the top stack, put in a washer, go to the bottom stack, put on another washer, and then the nut. And I already saved it, but you can come in here and say, you know, whatever your custom fastener system is, hit save, say OK, and it puts it in. So you have your bolt, you have the washer on one side, the washer, and the other nut. Hit finish, We'll do the same thing again down here. And this time I'll go into the Save Settings, Custom, hit OK. And just like that, you don't have to go through and reselect all the different parts that you want in that system. You can also go and add your own fastener systems into the standard parts and access them through this fastener system command. Okay, now we're going to look at some of the new rendering stuff. First, I'll go into the view. Actually, I'll hide this so you can see the inside parts. And they added some new default view styles. They now have high quality, which, as you can see, nicer image. You get a reflective floor. You can see the reflection of the part, and you can just, work in this environment if you want. If it's a small enough part and your computer's fast enough to handle it, you can if you want. If you're dealing with large assemblies, you probably don't want to. You probably want to go with the default. They also have rendering, which still gives you a nice image on your screen. We're going to go into the actual rendering environment. And out of the box, they've added some lighting, so you don't have to set up all the lighting. You get a lot nicer first pass when you go to render the scene. So as that's rendering, you'll see a lot of the lights are added. It's not as dark as it was in previous versions where seems like you kind of have to go through and add the lights and play with it a little bit to get a nicer image. Here you get a fairly nice image right off the bat. But we'll go in, and they've added some new materials, and they've also added a lot of new scenery. First, we'll go ahead and add some materials to this. First, we'll go into the finishes, we'll go into paint, flat paint. We'll pick lime for the circuit board. We'll go back and go into powder coatings. We'll say blue metal for the case and red metal for the switch. And then we'll go into the laminates, and we'll pick this smooth black laminate for the black plastic parts and give it a really nice shiny finish. Now we'll go into metal, and as you can see, the blade is kind of textured. Get rid of that. We want to put polished aluminum on it. Then for these covers, we'll go ahead and put chrome. Apply that to all the occurrences. Now we'll go in and we'll use polished gold for these parts. There we go. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and render the scene. So you can see what that looks like with just the materials added. And then we'll go in and we'll look at 3 of the new scenery things that they added. So as you can see now, it's a lot nicer finish on part. Looks a lot better. For the scenery, we'll go in there, and they've added this abstract background. And one of the nice ones they added was just this plain black with a reflective base. So I'll go ahead and apply that, and I'll zoom in that way. We get the image a little bit faster and render the scene. And this, it's just plain flat black background. It's got the reflective floor, and it gives you a real nice finish on the parts. So once it gets down here, you'll be able to see the reflection on the floor. It's a nice image, something you'd maybe see in like a brochure or a magazine or pamphlet, whatever. Now we'll go in and look at the exterior and interior scenery that they added. Just to show you what it looks like for the exterior one, I'll put that in. And I'll zoom out. That way it doesn't look quite as weird. Go ahead and render the scene. So you know, if you have a car or whatever you want to put outside of a building, or in this case, it looks more like a giant statue of a razor, you can put that in there. They also have interior ones, so we'll go ahead and put it on a table. And render that scene. So you can put your parts pretty much wherever you want, your assemblies, whatever. You can also, if say you don't want one of their default ones, you want to put it on the conference table in your office, you can take a picture of that conference table and put that as the background and show your part on that. That's all we have for the rendering right now. There's a lot more settings that they added, but we don't really have time to go into all of them. So now we'll go into the flow lines. Go ahead and go into the exploded environment, show the exploded view. And first we'll come up here to these parts. Like I said, they added the draw command so you can draw your own. You have to have the parts activated, and then you just select the points that you want to go from one part to another. And you'll notice if I come in here and select these and do drag component, I can drag these up and it'll automatically update the flow lines so that they still go to the part. They also added the modify, so I can come in here and I can select just one branch of the flow line, and you'll see it's kind of like the steering wheel, but it only has the 2 dimensions. So you can take that and you can drag the line to wherever you want it. And if you drag it out here and you decide to move it back, you just come to the edge of that line and it'll line it up with that. They also have the command to split flow lines. So you can come in here and split this, and let's say maybe you have it so it needs to go around a part. Then you can come in and just select this section that you split off and move it, and you can move it around whatever part you need to move it. Now we'll come down here and look at this part. Select that. I'll go ahead and I'll move it up and move it over here. And we'll go ahead and draw the flow lines. And maybe we want to base the coordinate system off of this angle face. So we'll just select that. And then come in here, select the hole we want to start at, where we want the line to go to. And what they've added is now the flow lines, when you draw them yourself, it'll act like the Path Express. So you just come up to this arrow and it'll draw the next path, and you can go through and choose whichever path you want. And go ahead and finish. We'll do the same thing over here. So they look the same. Click finish. And we'll come out here, and like with the bolts, if I select this part and move it, it'll go ahead and try to update the flow lines so that they match where it goes to now. Let's say you're trying to figure out where you want the part. If you kind of move it around, you get a mess sort of like this. What you can do is go into Modify and say Delete, and you can either delete the entire flow line or just a segment. And so maybe I just want it to go straight from here down to here. So I can just select a few of these segments and delete them, and then it will redraw the flow line going through those sections that you have left. That's all we have for flow line enhancements. Now we're going to go to draft. And there are a lot of enhancements here, a lot of stuff that people have been looking for that you guys should be happy with. So first we're going to go into the part list and look at those enhancements. We'll go ahead and go in here and create a title for this. And we'll change the font. We'll go ahead and change the size, and we'll underline it. Hit apply. See it update over there. Next, we'll go into the columns. First, we're going to look at this quantity one. You'll notice that there's not enough room in that box for it, so maybe we want to rotate it so that it'll be vertical, and we want to adjust the text column width. If I hit apply, you'll see that it changes it, but now it's kind of squished. So we'll go ahead and change the row height to 20 millimeters and hit apply. You'll see it update. Now it fits in there. Next, we're going to look at mass. You'll see over here we have mass item and mass quantity. What we want to do is put a header above that that just says mass. So we'll come in here, we'll copy this, delete the item after the end, and say show in 2 rows. So for the top row, for the bottom row, we'll go ahead and paste that. And we'll do the same thing for quantity. Copy that, delete, put that in the other row. Now apply, and you'll see it adds mass up at the top. But we don't want 2 of them, so we'll just go in here and say merge with next header. And we'll also go in and center that. Hit OK, hit apply. I have to check it on that one. Hit apply and center that. And it updates. Now we want to look at combining these where they say 1, because you really need to print that out over and over again if they're rare. So we'll go back to quantity and say merge vertical cells with the same value. Apply that. You'll see it merged all those together. Then we can go in and format the cell and change the vertical alignment to center. And we'll neaten that up. Next thing we're going to look at is the data. So in this list, you can now override what the cell says. So you see now white, and I can click in there and change that. Another thing they added, which people have been asking for a long time, is to make this work more like Excel. So you'll notice if I hit enter, it moves down. If I hold down shift and hit enter, it moves up. Tab moves it over, shift tab moves it over the other way. You'll see I apply, and now that changed what was in there. Next, we're going to look at the auto balloon. So I'll just create a detail view and move in and select the balloon. You want to make sure you have link to parts list turned on, item number, and the fastener system stack. And then you just come in here and select the fastener system, and it will automatically stack the balloons for those parts. If you want, you can come in here and go to properties, and you can change the orientation so that it's horizontal instead of vertical. Next, we're going to look at the callout. So I have the callout typed in there. I'll go ahead and place that. And the new things they added, now you can come over here and say show border, and that'll put a border around the callout. You can also come in here and say adjust aspect ratio. And so if I move that in closer, you'll see it kind of shrinks the text and pushes it together. Move it out, it'll expand it. They also have text wrap now. So if I drag this in, you'll notice as I get closer, it moves example down to the next line. We also want to look at the feature control frame. I just added a few symbols in there. I'll go ahead and place that. And now when you go into control frame after you've placed it, this first handle moves where it's positioned. The second handle extends and shrinks that leader line. And if I hold down Alt and hold on that and go to drag, now I can select these different points around it for where I want that line to go. So that's all for the control frame. Now we'll go in and look at first how you can lock the drawing views. So if I come in here and say properties, go to general, I can lock the drawing view position, hit OK, and now I can't drag that around, but I can still drag around the other ones in this page. Now we'll look at the hatching on the ribs. So I'll just pull out a section view right here, and you'll notice by default for this one, the hatching is turned off in the rib. If you go into solid edge options, go into your drawing standards, you now have an option so it'll hatch it by default or it won't. If you want to change that, you just go into properties and advanced, and you can change it for individual views. Set it to hatch ribs and section view, hit OK, come in and update the view, and you'll see it added the hatching in for that. Next thing we're going to look at is the dimension formatting. So I'll come in here and I'll change the properties in here and text for the override pullout. I'll set that to horizontal, hit OK. And since I have these other ones here and I want to apply that to those two, but I don't want to go in and change the properties for all of them, I can come up here to copy attributes. I can select if it's a prefix, style, whatever. For this, it's style. So I just click on the one I want to copy from, and then click on what I want to copy to, and it'll automatically put it into those. Next, we'll look at the break lines. I'm sorry, I'm kind of running over a little bit. I'll try to go through this kind of quick. If you guys have to take off to get back to work, I'll have the replay up on YouTube, and you can check it out there if you missed anything. So for this, I'll go to break lines. I can come up here and change the type of break line. I'll go ahead and say curved. I'll place those. I'll go to finish. It'll collapse that. If I want to go in to that view and place break lines again, it knows that there's already horizontal ones, so it'll set it so that you can set vertical ones. Place those, hit finish, and it adds those in too. Another thing they changed was with the broken out views. So I'll go ahead and create one of those. And with that, you'll notice that they changed the lines where it cuts. They used to be the same thickness as all the other lines on the part. Now they're thinner, so it's easier to see where that cut is actually taking place. Now we'll go in and look at some of the stuff that they changed with the text box. So we'll drag these two notes in here. I'll go ahead and zoom in. Go into this one. And we'll get rid of that question mark. What we want to put is a fraction in there. And the new thing that they added, if I hit enter or space or tab, it'll bring up this auto stack thing. So it'll convert it to stack, skewed, or tolerance. So I'll go ahead and hit OK, and it automatically puts that in a fraction. If we come down here, instead of typing in degrees, we want to put the symbol. They've added the slope symbol, so you go into that, and they've added a bunch of the symbols, so now you can find them easier. We'll go ahead and put degree and add that in. The last thing we want to look at with the draft is the print preview that they added. So just go in here to print. If I go to preview, now you'll actually be able to see a preview of what you're printing out, so you can double check and make sure nothing overlaps. That way you don't print it and go to the printer to get it and realize that you need to change something. So they have this zoom bar here where you can zoom in and zoom out. You can also click on the view to zoom in to wherever you want. You can go and view the next page. So for instance, if I look up here and zoom in, I notice that these dimensions kind of run into the border. So I can now go back and fix that instead of having to print it out and realize that later. That's all we have for the second part of what's new in ST4. Just what we went over today. We went over range, the fastener systems, some of the new stuff they added in rendering. We went over the new flow line, how you can draw and modify the flow lines. We looked at two of the new translators, and we looked at some of the enhancements in the draft. Like I mentioned, if you missed anything or had to jump off early, there are replays on YouTube channel, so you can go there to check out the replay. We also have upcoming training. These are the dates for the ST4 update. You'll get to see some of the other stuff that we didn't have time to cover and the 2 Lunchbyte sessions that we did. Once again, thank you for your time. If you have any questions, feel free to email us and we'll get back to you.